All right, so for those of you who can't, who can't tell, I'm really sick. Okay, like I am really sick, and I'm pretty sure it's COVID or Omicron or whatever it is. And of course, it's the second time I've been sick in 2 months, 3 months actually, December, January, February. And I usually don't get sick often, and I never got sick until this year, right? And ironically, this was after I took the 2 shots of COVID for the vaccines, right? And I used Pfizer, so it's not one of those. Both were Pfizer. Um, now, um, now I'm not saying it's because I took the vaccine that I got sick. It could be, honestly, it could be, but I think the fact that I'm still getting sick, even after taking the vaccines, it's a good sign that maybe the vaccine forcing people to take the vaccine is probably not the best. Um, from what I'm hearing, people have now they're saying there's a booster shots in Canada, and now according to some countries, even after the booster shots, because the booster shots is the third shot, even after the third one, people are still getting sick. So it's like, what are the vaccines doing exactly? And why should you take? Because typically you would take a vaccine so you don't get you build your antibodies and you don't have to deal with the disease, right? So the fact that we're still getting it, it makes me speculate, why is it that we're actually you know being forced or coerced to actually take these vaccines by the globalists, put it like that, because it seems like it's every single country, and to me it's a little suspicious. This I was watching this video today, and I'm gonna share this with you. Just watch. What are they saying? COVID-19 pandemic, Austria's vaccine mandate signed into law by the president. Now, this is what I'm really scared about. Now, I'm in Canada, and I want to believe that Canada is still a free country, for the most part, anyways. Um, and I think this is where it gets really dangerous, right? When this is, you know, by force. Um, right now, people are right now. It's not in Canada. You don't have to have the vaccine, but you just won't. You just won't go out and play. You just won't go to the cinemas. You won't go to clubs. You won't go to restaurants and all that stuff. Right? You'd be banned from that. I think that's still basically a mandate to some degree. But at least you don't have to. But now in Austria, it's a whole different ballgame. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here.
And Anthony, how will the new system actually work?
Well, there's going to be essentially a grace period. There's talk of the need to ensure that the country's electronic health system can cope with all the information and the various stages of interlinkage between vaccination and its new law. And what this effectively means is that it will be before or after the middle of March when police actually start to be able to issue violations, as it were, that can then result in these fines. The fines can total.
Okay, so hear what he says. He says, first of all, there's a grace period. Oh, it's like, you guys can have your fun now. We're coming for you guys, okay? You guys can have your fun, do all your protests and stuff, but just have fun. March, you guys will be in big trouble. And now, I'm sorry. Now what are they saying? He's talking about a fine. A fine. That is crazy to me. A fine. Let's hear more.
Up to 3,600 euros in a year. And that has led, of course, to suggestions that for people who are well off, this is something that's affordable as the price for not.
3,600 euros is the fine. 3,600 euros is the fine. You guys can do the math to know how much that is. Now, that's a flat fine. And like he just mentioned, rightfully so, the rich are not going to be perturbed by this. It's, paying that money is nothing.
Euros in a year.
In a year.
That has led, of course, to suggestions that for people who are well off, this is something that's affordable as the price for not getting vaccinated, and that it will only really hit people who don't want to get vaccinated and who are not well. What we've been told is that nobody's actually going to go to prison, but of course these are
not yet
violations for law, and they can result in some pretty hefty penalties.
Okay, this is when every time, and this is the second time I'm hearing this from the Austrian government in history, and they did this some time ago with the gun rights I think just before the 60s, if I'm not mistaken, just before the Cold War era. I think I have to check my history to be sure about that. But you see what he's saying? He's like, well, no one's gonna go to prison, but there's a fine. You have to pay a fine of $3,600. Okay. So say I'm in Austria and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to pay the fine. Then what? What you going to do? Well, you're going to arrest me for sure. Because if you don't, I'm not going to pay it. All right? Hey, there's got to be a punishment for me not paying that $3,600. That's what the government they always use this to deceive the gullible, ignorant populace. Right? And there are a lot of them, trust me. They play with the emotions of the people, manipulate them, put all these laws that are not suitable for the people to frustrate them and put them in a state of just agony. Because the fact that they have to be fined if they don't take a vaccine, that clearly doesn't work as it's supposed to. It's ridiculous to me. It's ridiculous that they're reinforcing. They're doubling down on the fact that, you've got to take the vaccines. But we all know that the vaccines aren't really doing what they're supposed to do. So you forcing it on people is unfair. It's unfair. It's unfair. But whatever.
Anthony, is there still a significant degree of opposition to the mandate?
Duh.
The leader of the far-right Freedom Party...
I love when they say this stuff. I love when they do that. It's like, we're getting some opposition. Yeah, we are getting some opposition. But the leader, it's the leader of the far right that's actually the opposition. It's the far right movement, right? It's the nationalists, the Nazis, whatever. They call them some label, right? The far right, terrible people. They're the ones who are against this. Good people are not against this. That's why you have thousands of people on the road protesting. Now, I'm not sure exactly what this protest is for, though. I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to assume it's because of the whole vaccine thing. Because as you can see here, there are not a lot of people with masks on. I don't think they're actually for the vaccine if they're out here without no masks. So I think they're protesting against this ideology. So they're basically labeling this entire populace here that I'm looking at. They've been filling my screen for the past minute or so, that they're all far rights. All the far rights in Austria just decided to come out at the same time, fill the streets, while normal people were so scared they ran into their houses, because far right happens to be the norm in Austria.
Kickle in a statement today, again, and this is something that he's done in the run-up to this, spoke in quite dramatic terms of the kind of demise of Austrian democracy. He has likened this to an assault on freedom. He's even in the past talked about the rise of totalitarianism in Austria, all very incendiary language, direct.
How can this be incendiary language, though? I mean, I'm not in support of a far-right movement because just like the far-left movement, I'm also against far-right movement because I think they're all extremists. That's exactly why they label them as far-right. They're extremists to a certain degree. Now, he's saying that, that this idea of forcing people to take the vaccine is not a totalitarian movement. Of course it is. Of course it's totalitarian. Like, how else would you explain it? Where you're forcing people to do something, whether they like it or not. It's authoritarian. Maybe not totalitarian, but at least it's authoritarian. Right? It's like there's an authority that says you must do this, and if you don't, you pay a fine, and if you don't pay the fine, well, you live with the consequences. Right? Sounds authoritarian to me.
Of course, at the base of the far-right Freedom Party, which has recovered quite significantly since a scandal engulfed its former leader, former Vice-Chancellor Heinz-Christian Strache, and of course he's playing to that base. It should be noted as well that there is still very significant skepticism about this law and about the vaccine mandate in Austria. We're still only at roughly 80% or so in terms of valid vaccinations, and we've got a whole bunch of people who are going to fall out of the system because they haven't got their boosters yet. So a sizable portion of the population still in opposition to this law, and of course Herbert Kickl, the leader of the far-right Freedom Party, playing to that. They hope.
You know, this is just the whole thing that's been happening. I think they've been pushing this in the U.S. as well. I don't know what it is, and I know there is a propaganda going on. Call me a conspiracist, but there's something happening that all these countries seem to want to force this vaccination, even though they know, they are fully aware that it doesn't work. They know that it doesn't work. This is why they were all up in Joe Rogan's face. And for those of you who don't know Joe Rogan, he's a very famous YouTuber, really excelled from podcasts and stuff like that. Very wealthy and very influential. So just because he didn't want to have the vaccine, and because obviously being such a popular guy and obviously famous to a certain degree, and he made a statement that he is not going to take the vaccines, everyone was just up in his face, calling him an idiot and blah blah blah. And it was a whole thing. And it's like they're shading people that don't want to take the vaccine. And I don't see why. There is really no valid reason for this. It is not like me taking the vaccine is going to prevent me. Like, I got the illness I have right now, which I'm pretty sure is COVID. I got it from someone who was vaccinated. The person was also sick. So it's not like the person that I got it from didn't have it. Do you get what I mean? Like, didn't have the vaccine, and so the person had some mutated form that passed it on to me who had the vaccine. No, this person was at least double vaccinated, and I was as well. I said, oh, the booster will protect you, but it doesn't, because in countries like Israel, they already are on the 4th shot. They're already taking 4 shots. I don't know. You guys tell me what you think in the comments below. I think this is getting ridiculous, and I think we need to stand up. I know countries in Africa aren't too perturbed by this because, they really want us to be, affected by this disease, but we're not. And it just pisses them off because it kind of ruins their agenda, because if Africans aren't really getting, getting affected by this thing, it's obvious that it's not as critical as they've been making it sound. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Drop your comments, like and subscribe. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.